Chairman? Can someone check with the chairman, or should I just proceed?
Oh, we have another technical glitch here. But I'm not seeing a quorum. If I may
22 persons are on, Chairman.
Tamisha, can you comment on that, please?
We're having some technical difficulties because
we work to make communities safer by essentially looking at the structures in the community that contribute greatest to social capital building. Try to reinforce, build, and establish those structures in a way that the community can sustain their own safety and own their own peace. When we say, for instance, we're doing a zinc fence removal program, what we're really doing is improving the line of sight. If you're on the street and you can see better what is behind the fences, then as you walk along the street or children play on, etc., you're able to contribute to crime prevention. We believe, in terms of our mandate and our responsibility, that by making communities safer, we can make Jamaica safer.
Jamaica, home of the resilient, passionate and hard-working. A people and a nation who have achieved and defied all odds, working to keep their economy growing, their country thriving, from investments made in innovative opportunities and exports demanded globally. We have a vision, now within our grasp, where Jamaica becomes the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. We will not let go of this vision. We will grow. We will overcome these challenging times and look to the future with hope and positivity. These are special times. The world as we know it has changed, but home will always be in our hearts. And in Jamaica, you can always find a home. Think you know Jamaica? Look again. You will be surprised.
A major area in high school for me was IT and EDPM. I did that for 2 years, and from then I realized that there was a drive for more of technology. So I decided to take this step.
Crime is Jamaica's #1 threat. As we stay apart while working together to fight COVID-19, we must all live good and unite against crime and violence in Jamaica. Live good means talk it out, don't fight it out. We must live good to build a safe Jamaica. Stay home, stay safe, live good.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with the cold or flu-like symptoms. If you think you've been exposed to COVID-19, stay home. Self-isolate immediately and call 888-1-LOVE. That's 888-663-5683. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
This is our home, Jamaica, and tourism is the lifeblood of our country. Let's all feel good again. Whether with family or friends, we want you to enjoy your staycation.
We have to ensure that they are comfortable, they feel well protected.
New standards are in place to ensure your safety. We are here to serve you better, so you can have the best experience. Come out and rediscover Jamaica.
We are ready.
We are ready.
We are ready.
Rediscover Jamaica.
Heartbeat of the world.
Watch yourself online, that's what my crew say. Make it a new day. I'm reminded by the Broadcasting Commission. We the BCJ. What if it was your friend in the mix? What if it was your sis in the pics? What if you want a terrorist watch list? What if?
Suppose that one. What you do?
Don't like, don't comment, don't click. Report it, block it, don't make it stick. Don't trust everybody on the internet. Use it to step up your intellect. So online you have to be safe too. Don't believe the rumors or the fake news. Don't go everywhere they try to take you. Protect the kids or they find a way through. What if it was your friend in the mix? What if it was your sis in the pics? What if you want a terrorist watch list? What if?
Suppose that one.
What if?
Wait up, free.
The king may rule over land and sea. The Lord may live right royally. The soldier ride in pomp and pride. The sailor roam over ocean wide. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The writer thinks, the poet sings. The craftsman fashion wondrous things. The doctor heals, the lawyer pleads, the miner follows the precious leads. But this or that, whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The merchant, he may buy and sell, the teacher do his duty well. But men may toil through busy days, or men may stroll through pleasant ways. From king to beggar, Whatever befall, the farmer, he must feed them all. The farmer's trade is one of worth. He's partner with the sky and earth. He's partner with the sun and rain, and no man loses for his gain. And men may rise, or men may fall, but the farmer, he must feed them all. God bless the man who sows the meat, who finds us milk and fruit and meat. May his purse be heavy, his heart be light, his cattle and pigs and all go right. God bless the seeds his hands let fall, for the farmer, he must feed us all.
Hello, Jamaica. My name is Patsy Edwards Henry.
I am Dr. Mindy Fitzenley.
I am Dr. Andrew Manning.
COVID-19 has wreaked havoc on our families.
Over 21,000 persons have been infected.
We now have a safe, effective COVID-19 vaccine.
I
will take
the vaccine.
Vaccinate to stay safe.
This is an important message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Sometimes it really feels like hope has left us with no option. And then sometimes we get so caught up in what we think life should be. And we lost it all. Our hearts become slowly feeling so much pain, and we can't see past the stormy weather. But it'll get better, 'cause we are stronger than any obstacle. Oh, yeah, we are braver than what we've been taught. We've been taught. Strong, yes we are. Powerful, yes we are. We can make it through every single thing. Every single thing. Fearless we are. We are great, yes we are. We can make it through every single thing. Strong, yes we are. Powerful, yes we are. We can make it through every single thing. Fearless we are. We are great, yes we are. We can make it through every single thing. Sometimes it does. powerful, yes we are. We can make it through every single thing. Fearless we are great, yes we are. We can make it through every single thing. Strong, yes we are. Powerful, yes we are. We can make it through every single day. Fearless we are great, yes we are. We can make it through every single thing. Strong, yes we are. Powerful, yes we are. We can make it through every single thing. Fearless we are great, yes we are. We can make it through every little thing.
This message was brought to you by Not Nice Records.
Jamaica is a beautiful place. Our people have a beautiful spirit, but we are too aggressive, and the way we interact with our friends and neighbors, I genuinely believe that we have the capacity to deal with this problem of violence. But it's going to take all of us. It's going to take every organized group of Jamaicans that we fundamentally reject violence. Violence has no place in a modern society.
Here is a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5. There's no job more important than parenting. That was a special parenting message brought to you by the National Family Planning Board, 5 Sylvan Avenue, Kingston 5.
What if they knew that you abused her? Her family?
Mr. Jones.
And your colleagues, how will they look at an abuser? When the law comes knocking, you'll have nowhere to run.
Mr. Brown, you're under arrest. Please get up, hands behind your head and interlock your fingers.
Turn your back on abusers. Report gender-based violence to the police. There's no excuse for abuse. Call the Bureau of Gender Affairs at 876-754-8577.
The Forestry Department is leading the implementation of the National Tree Planting Initiative, which seeks to plant 3 million trees in 3 years, one for each Jamaican plus a little extra for good measure. So I'm inviting each Jamaican to visit our nurseries across the island and collect your tree seedling and make your mark towards this great goal for Jamaica.
Paradise Plum, and keep it locked to PBCJ. This is your girl, Naomi Cowan.
Hello, Phil.
You doing your morning exercise? So all of we seniors have to keep the immune system strong.
Yes, Phil. This morning, I have to remind Johnny that people 75 and over can only leave them yard to get groceries and medicine.
And you know me have diabetes, so I have to be extra careful.
Yes, Phil. Elderly people who have some sickness already, like cancer and high blood pressure, they can't take no chance. They have to stay home, wash them hands regular, and don't touch them face.
And we need to stock up on medicine and supplies. We have to be ready for anything. Yes, sir. Now go finish exercise now. Keep safe, my friend.
Reduce your risk of viral illnesses like the flu and coronavirus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Cover your nose and mouth when coughing with a tissue and dispose of it. Avoid close contact with anyone with the cold or flu-like symptoms. If you think you've been exposed to COVID-19, stay home. Self-isolate immediately and call 888-1-LOVE. That's 888-663-5683. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
COVID-19 is still here. Always wear your mask correctly while in public places, covering your nose and mouth at all times. Masks should never be worn over the head, under your chin, below your nose, or hanging from your ears. Recovery from COVID-19 can take up to 60 days or more. The mask or the ventilator? You choose. A message from the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Coronavirus is in Jamaica, and I know you feel scared and worried. But you can't let COVID-19 divide us. Coronavirus infects all kinds of people. It doesn't discriminate. So why should you? When someone coughs or sneezes or shows signs of the virus, tell them to call 888-1-LOVE immediately. And remember, stay 6 feet.
Said before, Senator Webby will be late.
Okay. All right, we'll get right into it. The minutes of the meeting of April 29th were circulated. And I want to know if there are any changes anyone has to, any suggested changes to the minutes. If not, can we?
I move for the adoption, Chairman.
I didn't hear you, member.
I move for the adoption.
All right, seconded. I'm allowed to second.
Yes, Chairman.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. All right, so the minutes are adopted. Any matters arising from the minutes? Ms. Bailey?
I don't know if the technical team wants to discuss any of the matters. I think there are some of the clauses that you said you would review once more.
Right, okay, those we propose to come back when we have seen enough of them, because we had made a point that there are lots of examples.
Yes, so we have to start at clause 27.
Okay, so members are asked to turn and technical team turn to clause 27 of the bill. Last time we had CPC, I believe, going through the bill. Maybe we have a rotation.
No, Chair, it wasn't me. I think it was Ms. Edwards who.
It was Ms. Edwards. Oh, so how we want to do it now? You want to do it CPC or Ms. Edwards? Anyone? I'm agnostic.
Chairman, we've made arrangements. Ms. Crystal Corbett, the Senior Legal Officer from the JCA, will do the reading today.
Okay, wonderful.
Chairman, just before we proceed to part 3, so part A, may I just ask to be excused? I will rejoin soonest.
Okay, Madam, member rather.
All right. Thank you.
All right. All right, so you want to go as you have arranged. You can put your hand down, Ms. Bailey. Your hand is up. Yeah, so let's go as according to your plan, Ms. Edwards.
Part 3, customs control. Subpart A, customs port.
Can you turn your mic? Can you turn your video on, because it's been recorded by PBC, and whoever has the mic, whoever is speaking, want to see the video. I'll turn my video off, and I'll turn it on when I am speaking. All right, so over to you, please. No, you're.
Customs control ports. One.
Ms. Corbett?
The audio. The
Yes.
audio is horrible. Wow, we're having technical difficulties today. All right, yes, Commissioner.
If it is that Ms. Corbett's audio is not coming clear, then I'm suggesting that Ms. Edwards take over the reading. We would probably ask Ms. Corbett to try again, and if we're having problems, then we move to Ms. Edwards with the readings.
I accept your recommendation. Ms. Edwards?
Your mic is muted, Ms. Edwards.
Thank you. Part 3, everyone hearing me?
Yes.
Good. Part 3, customs control. Subpart A, customs ports. Clause 27. 1. The minister may, by notice published in the Gazette, subject to such conditions as the minister thinks fit, appoint any place to be a customs controlled port. 2. No place shall be used as a customs controlled port unless security is given in accordance with Part 12. 3. No place shall be used as a customs controlled port unless appointed as such under this Act. Clause 28. So clause 1, obligations of operator of customs controlled port. The operator of a customs controlled port shall, A, permit an officer at any time to enter upon and inspect that port and all buildings and goods found there. B, keep a record in such form and manner and containing such particulars as may be prescribed by rules. C, make the records referred to in paragraph B, together with any other relevant information, available on demand by the proper officer. And D, permit the proper officer to make copies of and take extracts from or remove for a reasonable period the records referred to in paragraph C. Clause 29, customs controlled airport. So clause 1, the minister may, by order published in the Gazette, A, appoint any area in Jamaica constituting or within an airport as a customs controlled airport. B, alter the boundaries of any customs controlled airport. And C, impose conditions on the use of any area in Jamaica as a customs controlled airport. The operator of a customs controlled airport shall ensure that A, access is given to officers at all times to enter the customs controlled airport and inspect all buildings and goods there. B, records are kept in such form and manner and containing such particulars as may be prescribed by rules. And C, the records referred to in paragraph B, together with any other relevant information, are produced to the proper officer upon demand, and that the officer is permitted to make copies or extracts of such records or to remove them for a reasonable period. Subclause 3, For the purposes of subsection 1A, airport has a meaning assigned to it by the Civil Aviation Act. I pause here, Minister, because
there was a comment that you want to ventilate.
Yeah, Minister, I want to make a comment here as well. Sorry, Chairman.
Yeah.
Should I go ahead?
Yes. Go ahead.
All right. I noticed earlier that there was the designation of place was by the minister. So the Commissioner of Custom also has the power to designate a place. I thought that was your duty as a minister. Any comments,
this
please?
provision,
No,
this
okay.
provision,
Go ahead, Ms. Edwards.
I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question. This provision empowers the minister by order to designate the boundaries of a customs controlled airport, not the commissioner.
Okay, Ms. Edwards.
And 29.
You paused for another reason. Is it something on the matrix? But
there had been some questions that had been raised by stakeholders, Minister.
Yes.
We had provided some preliminary responses when the airport operators had first raised the concerns, when they were making their verbal submissions to the committee. So I was pausing because I don't know if the committee wanted to take any final decisions in relation to those comments. For example, there have been concerns about the designation of the customs controlled airport. We had clarified at that time that while the airport itself, the international airport, is designated by the minister with responsible for immigration, the power of the Minister of Finance to designate the boundaries of the customs controlled airport, which will be within the boundaries of the airport designated by the minister with responsible for immigration. We felt that there would be no conflict with that.
No, I think
so.
The concern was also just a practical financial concern that, having spent money to prepare an area for customs, if this power exercised arbitrarily, it could subject the operators to huge unexpected costs. That was the concern. But I think it's in Jamaica's interest that the Minister of Finance, whoever that person is at any point in time, is the responsible party after conferring with stakeholders and getting appropriate advice to designate the customs controlled area. That cannot be in any way diluted. So hear the comment, but yes, I would agree that it stays as it is.
Indeed. And Minister, there had been another concern that had been raised, and it had to do with consultation. The requirement for the minister to consult before making the designation. We had indicated that in principle, there's no objections to consultations, trusted that the minister will consult before he exercises his power. But the question as to whether or not there ought to be some express mention of consultation here in the legislation, that of course being not a position that the technical team is necessarily advancing, but I wanted to raise it so that we can decide and move forward.
I wouldn't want to introduce anything that sort of fetters the power. At the end of the day, the Minister, of Finance is going to be concerned about, the revenues and the revenue base, and I think that will act as a check on any kind of unreasonable behavior at the end of the day, especially with respect to the airports. The airports are under the PPP arrangements. At the end of the day, it is a PPP, and the government has an interest, even though that interest might vary from the interest of the operator. I think consultation is a natural part of the process. I would be concerned at the room for misinterpretation if we were to put those words in.
Minister, let me support the view that the nature of the power being granted to the Minister of Finance in this regard should be, I believe, should be unfettered. It being understood, and I think it is a normal, it's a practice anyways, for the minister to consult. I think the suggestion that he is obliged to do so, even in circumstances where he may be forced to act preemptively, I think may not be such a good idea when we're trying to prevent leakage or anything from interfering with the revenues of the state. I think where it's a normal practice in government that you do that as a matter of course, but the airports authority, the airports operators should not be under any notion that they can hold up a process unreasonably and put at risk the revenue. So I think it's implied that the consultation will take place.
Yeah, thank you, Member Hilton. All right, let's move on, Ms. Edwards.
Yes, Chairman. Clause 30.
Sorry, Chairman, Ms. Edwards. Sorry about that.
On your point, you mean the answer to your question, Member Dunn? Did you get an answer?
No, but I'm going back to it now. Because notwithstanding what is written here, Ms. Edwards, take for instance, number one, any place as an authorized place for the load and unloading on any class or description of goods herein approved wharf. I mean, the minister now basically has to designate anywhere in Jamaica to be used as a port of call for any reason. But so what if this is given just to the commission, because I said not without prejudice of any power exercise under 27 and 29. So I still go to the point that shouldn't this be the prerogative of the minister? I mean, even if the commissioner has to consult with him, because he's the holder of the public purse. So he wants to be assured that anywhere there's an approved wharf, he is in the loop of that approved wharf and he's in agreement with it.
Member, forgive me, I had not realized that you had moved ahead. So your question was in relation to clause 30.
Yes.
Ms. Edwards, yes.
Okay, I had not realized that. So let me just be sure I'm understanding your question. You are concerned about the commissioner being the one to designate approved places of loading and unloading under clause 30?
Correct.
All right, well, on our review, the recommendation from the technical team had been for this power to move to the commissioner because it was felt that this is an operational matter. These are operational matters that the commissioner will be best placed to take decisions on, and it would allow for greater efficiency in the operations of customs. The wider power in terms of designating customs control airport and designating ports, that would continue to be with the minister. So you are correct that clause 30 represents a shift in how things would normally operate. But the technical team is making this recommendation because on our review, this is more operationally efficient. We also looked at other jurisdictions, and we noted that in most modern customs administrations, where one is designating spaces related to day-to-day operational activities of customs, such as places of loading and unloading and examination stations and so on, that power rests with the Commissioner of Customs and not usually with an executive. And so we thought to follow that trend.
But Mr. Edwards, maybe we could add to it, I mean, in consultation with the minister. Minister, if you remember a conversation I had with you before from the ministry with regards to cement. And that's why I mentioned, because you did explain to me at that time, you know, the purpose of ensuring that the cement are loaded or unloaded at the approved places. And therefore it goes now to this clause that you or whoever is the Minister of Finance at that time should at least be aware of where is going to be an approved wharf. So I believe that this maybe should be adjusted a bit to say in consultation with the Minister of Finance.
Now, understand your concern, and you make a good point. My understanding, though, is that the instance that you're concerned about you know, any permission for a sufferance wharf to take delivery of goods that is not in its license, that's not affected by this clause.
No, it's not. I know.
Only that would require ministerial approval.
Right.
The key the principle to use when I think, in trying to determine what is reserved for the commissioner and what for the minister, is that matters of policy lie in the yes, and any change in policy or any exception that goes outside of policy, approval of exceptions, that should lie with the executive of the land. Matters that are more operational in nature should lie with the operational authority.
No, Chairman, I do understand that, but from the point for policy and operations to work together, each arm should know what is happening, and therefore I believe that there should be some consultative process that allows for the minister to be aware that this is actually taking place. So I agree with you. There's a distinct differences between both, but at the same time, I believe that the holder of the public purse should be aware of what is happening.
Yeah, well, I mean, you make a very good. Let's interrogate this a little more. In clause 30, then, Ms. Edwards, this would give the commissioner power to approve an area as a sufferance wharf, as a new wharf.
Technically, it can, Minister.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Minister. And in fact, that's one of the adjustments that need to be made to this clause, because when we looked at it, we have the language here of approved wharf, but when we look at the definition of sufferance wharf, it refers to a place for essentially loading and unloading of goods of a specific type designated under clause 30. But at clause 30, the word sufferance wharf does not appear. So it's necessary for us to make an adjustment to reconcile the language, either by inserting another provision or making it clear that when we're looking at.
Look, Member Dunn makes a excellent point. Jamaica is an island. We already have many points of entry. Their concerns about national security and implications, and I don't feel comfortable to pronounce on this one at this point in time. I think the questions raised require some reflection. I think the member might be onto something. let's pause on it, and maybe I can have the benefit of a conversation with you and the commissioner before the next meeting.
Noted, Minister.
Yeah, I mean, that's approving of a new sufferance wolves and so on is a very sensitive matter.
Noted, Minister. So I've made a notation in relation to clause 31A, Roman numeral 1.
Yeah, even if it's a two-step process of somebody recommends and somebody approves. But to devolve it totally, I'm not sure. I'm not sure without sort of further dialogue and more information. Let's discuss it. Okay?
Yes, Minister.
Very well, Minister.
Chairman, I think we should. I really think we should.
Yeah, okay.
Chairman?
Yes?
Am I?
Please, CPC.
Right, so this might also have a bearing on the discussion because clause 262 does provide for publication of regulations and rules before they come into operation.
Yeah.
And technically, because the instrument under clause 30 is a notice published in the Gazette, that falls within the definition of a regulation or rule as specified in the Interpretation Act. So that publication procedure would apply. Now, I don't know if that was actually the intention of Customs.
Well, yes, all the approved places of loading and unloading, certainly the wharves, that currently is done by means of Gazette. So it is public knowledge, and it was not intended to depart from that. It should be publicly known. All the approved places should be publicly known.
Yes, but I'm just pointing that this would be before they actually come into operation. So there's a procedure for comments and feedback there. So that you might want to bear that in mind in the discussions around whether any revision is necessary.
Noted, CPC.
All right, let's move on. And by the way, I just correct myself a little bit. You don't have to turn your video on when you're speaking. What is being shown on the PBC channel is actually, I believe, the bill. And it might help us with some of the bandwidth issues as well. So there's no obligation to turn the video on when you're speaking when we're going through the clause by clause. Otherwise, yes, but during clause by clause, the bill as we're seeing it here is up on the screen. Please continue, Ms. Edwards.
Very well, I will begin, even though we started the discussion on it, but I'll begin reading it now. Clause 30, designation of places by Commissioner for Customs purposes. So clause 1, without prejudice to any power exercisable under section 27 or 29, the Commissioner may, by notice published in the Gazette, A, designate 1, any place as an authorized place for the loading or unloading of any class or description of goods, hereinafter referred to as an approved wharf, or 2, any place within a customs controlled port or customs controlled airport as an authorized place for the embarkation and disembarkation of travelers.
Hello.
Okay.
Just to pause here, Minister, pause here, Chairman, to indicate that on our review, that second one, and certainly having received additional comments in terms of designating the places of embarkation and disembarkation of travelers, that would be deleted.
Which one? Clause?
The Commissioner's power to designate places for the embarkation and disembarkation of travelers.
Right, okay.
Sorry, Ms. Edwards said that is to be deleted?
Yes, because it was recognized that that power more properly rests with immigration.
Yes, yes.
B, designate boarding stations within a customs control port for the purpose of the boarding of or disembarkation from vessels or vehicles by officers. C, subject to such conditions as the commissioner considers fit and for such period as may be specified in the notice, designate as an examination station, 1, any part of or place at a customs control port or customs control airport, or 2, any place approved under paragraph A. D, subject to such conditions as the commissioner considers fit and for such period as may be specified in the notice, authorize any place to be used as a temporary storage facility for the deposit of goods imported or to be exported. E, to meet the exigencies of any case, designate any other place to be an authorized area for the 1, entry, unloading, storage, removal, or loading of goods, or 2, report and customs processing of aircraft or vessels. F, designate.
Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Can I just ask a question, just for my own information? Chairman, through you, sir, how does this section relate to the military? Does it relate any at all? Does it affect the military any at all? Does it take into consideration the military any at all? Did you hear the question?
I'm not sure.
Or
I
was
hear the
saying,
question, but I'm not sure if I'm understanding. Perhaps if you clarify the concern.
Right, the question I'm asking is because of the power of the commissioner in this case, or the power that is being given to the commissioner. The military tends to operate a little bit different. So I want to know, as I said, just for my information, I don't know if how does this apply to the military? Does it exclude the military? Does it include the military? Or it doesn't take in the military into consideration any at all? Because I know the military have private arrangements. They have security type arrangements, whether it's the landing of aircraft, taking off of aircraft, the embarking and disembarking of equipment or vehicles from aircraft. So I just want to know if this is if I'm thinking too far or there's no relationship any at all here. Ms. Edwards?
Well, as far as I am aware, if you're not hearing me?
I am hearing you, yes.
All right, as far as I am aware, the question with the landing and the takeoff of aircraft, that would not be, I believe that's more an issue for immigration. In terms of equipment, I know that the military imports equipment, but as far as, right, but which is why we've removed the bit about the embarkation and disembarkation of travelers, because that really is an immigration function. But in terms of goods, as far as I'm aware, and I would just defer to any of the operational members of the team who can speak to it, but notwithstanding that the military, there may be exemptions in terms of duty treatment and so on, but I do believe that if goods are being imported by the military, that customs has a role in processing those imports and those exports.
But you're correct, Ms. Edwards. You're indeed correct, Ms. Edwards, and to members Don's concern or question.
Hi, Commissioner.
Yes, hi. All goods coming in, whether it be for the military, whether it be for the JDF, or any citizen, has to go through the legislative regime of the country as it relates to border regulatory concerns, whether it needs a permit, whether it needs a license, and whatever import duties and taxes are there that to be levied. So the military does go through the same regime, albeit that there is a very good relationship with Customs and the JDF, so that they would be sending their information to Customs in a very timely manner and to give us advance notice so that we can have our work arrangement so that there are no delay on their part. But the law of the land does apply to them as well.
Mr. Chairman.
I was thinking, Commissioner, that, I mean, having been somebody who had served in the military, and again, maybe I can be wrong, in that sometimes there are so much sensitive matters that, granted that a commissioner holds a high position in the government, I'm just wondering out aloud, you know, if there is anything within the law or within, see that we're now doing the Custom Act itself, you know, how does it relates to the military, and if that consultative process had in fact taken place to see how do we craft the language in this to support those things?
Well, the JDF would have been, oh, somebody else is speaking?
No. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Right, so I'm saying all our stakeholders, including the JDF, would have had access or given the opportunity to interrogate this bill, and there were no comments from them. And whether or not they have been having any issues in the clearance of their goods, both on the import and the export side. To my mind and what I have seen as it is, there have been challenges. So I think their concern is not one that we would have seen that there's a challenge. And so I want you to rest assured, Minister, member, that, you know, there was, then I'm sure that the JDF would have raised it.
I may just add as well, Commissioner, that there was some engagement with the JDF, not on this specific issue that you have raised, member, but there was engagement in relation to the legislation. I'd also add to that, while it is true that the JDF and other agencies of government may have sensitive imports, Customs usually works with those stakeholders to manage that process. So usually there may be an expedited clearance process, because some goods by their very nature may be dangerous, or, you know, it's high risk to have those items sitting on the port awaiting clearance. And so Customs would have in place an expedited clearance process, but the business of monitoring and knowing what comes in and what goes out and ensuring that there are no loopholes and the relevant rules are being followed, that is something that's a mandate that Customs has been executing in relation to all agencies.
Chairman, I've got a difficulty raising my hand. Can I, please?
Can you go ahead, please?
Marlon Lawyer, Customs. So the JDF do have internal persons that are trained by custom brokers, and work very closely with Customs, and in fact, subject themselves to all the processes and procedures and cooperate with Customs. We do offer what you would call expedited treatment or special treatment, and they normally come to us and explain the situation long in advance. But also, because the goods might be sensitive, it is important for Customs to play a role to ensure that it actually goes where it's supposed to go and is treated in a manner as though it should be treated. Because at the end of the day, we'll have to be accountable for the borders. But there's a close relationship. Persons are trained and we do work together.
Chair, I'm also having trouble raising my hand. May I?
Please go ahead.
From the Attorney General's Chambers, Chair, simply to support the previous comments by the Customs and to indicate that there is usually an agreement or arrangement in place to facilitate the whatever cooperative arrangements that the JDF may have with its overseas partners, including specific provisions to deal with whatever the importation of goods, the landing of aircraft, or whatever for customs arrangements, which often specifically address the question of the waiver of duties for customs, but do not exempt the goods per se from customs inspection, but require an expedited or a particular procedure for customs inspection or the handling of sensitive goods, but that process is in accordance with domestic legislative requirements. And as our customs colleagues have indicated, it is done in a particular way, but it is not an exemption from the laws of the land, but it is in accordance with in a specific way, and this has been done consistently over a period of time. The Foreign Ministry, the JDF, does the legal arrangements, and the operational arrangements are then subsequently executed by Customs, taking into account whatever sensitivities and operational aspects are to be done. And then the procedure is done in a fairly seamless manner. I hope that assists the member. Thank you, Chair.
That's how it should be, Chairman. It seems to me that what the AG's office just described has to be the way in which it is done, simply because what you don't want are multiple regimes affecting custom controlled areas. And I think it's the work of the agencies working together with appropriate arrangements in place to ensure that both the external considerations in the case of, say, foreign bilateral arrangement or multilateral arrangements are taken fully into account through the process just described with Foreign Affairs, Customs, and the JDF, or immigration, or whatever other agencies. But we need to be very careful that we don't have multiple or seem to have any conflict as to the certainty of the law in this area.
Yeah, thank you, Member Hilton, and thank you, Member Dunn, for your question. Thanks for AG and CPC, AG's chambers for the responses. Let's move on. Ms. Edwards?
Yes, Ed. Designate any place to be an authorized place to which goods moved under this act when required to be warehoused by the government. G, designate any place to be a customs private bonded warehouse, being a place that is to be used only by specified persons on the written authorization of the commissioner for the storage of goods under the warehousing procedure. H, authorize any place to be used as a customs public bonded warehouse, being a place that may be used by any person for the storage of goods under the warehousing procedure. And I, designate any place to be a customs office. Subclause 2, the commissioner may grant an authorization referred to in subsection 1 to a person only if the person, A, provides sufficient assurance to the commissioner as to the proper conduct of operations at the place concerned, and B, provides security in accordance with Part 12. So clause 3, for the purposes of subsection 2, a person on whom certified status is conferred under this act shall be deemed to have met the requirements of subsection 2A if the conduct for which the authorization is sought is covered by the application in respect of which the certified status was granted. B, where a comprehensive security is provided, compliance with the obligations attached to that security shall be monitored by the appropriate audits. And C, the conditions subject to which the authorization is granted shall be set out in the authorization. 4, a person to whom an authorization is granted under this section shall keep records in respect of the operations concerned in a form satisfactory to the commissioner, and such records shall contain all information necessary to enable the commissioner to supervise those operations, and in particular as regards to the identification of goods involved and the movement and custom status of those goods. 5, the commissioner may allow A, the operator of a facility at which goods are stored pursuant to an authorization under this section to move goods held in storage under this act by that operator between storage facilities. 1, if the commissioner is satisfied that such movement will not increase the risk of fraud, and 2, subject to such terms and conditions as the commissioner may specify in writing. 6, the operator of a facility authorized to be used as a temporary storage facility under this section, A, shall, where required to deposit goods in the facility, secure the facility to the satisfaction of the commissioner, and B, shall not make or cause to be made any alteration or addition to the facility without the prior approval of the commissioner. Clause 31.
Sorry, Ms. Edwards. Sorry to interrupt. On that section, B, shall not make or cause to be made any alteration or additional to the facility without the prior approval of the commissioner. Wouldn't this be an overreach in the ambient of a business person trying to constantly improve their storage facility, etc., etc.?
I didn't hear a portion of what you said. The connection was poor. I heard up to the point of would this not be an overreach, and then nothing after that. Are you hearing me?
I'm hearing it loud and clear.
All right.
Right. I was saying that yes. I'm just wondering if this section, this particular one, is an overreach of the bill, and the commissioner in this case, in that it is a private enterprise or a private person with the interest of expanding their business, would need to seek prior approval from the commissioner, which is outside person's normal operation of a business, in order to do their expansion. Sorry, go ahead.
Right, so the purpose of the restriction unduly limit the ability of business persons to make changes, but we must recall that these facilities are special controlled areas, and goods that have not been duty paid will be stored in these facilities. So the boundaries of the facilities must be clearly defined. And usually what would happen is if it's, let's say it's on a plot of land, the exact geographic dimensions of that plot of land will be described in the approval. If it is a part of an existing structure, you could have a building with, let's say, 2 rooms. Only 1 room constitutes the customs control area or the temporary storage facility, for example, and that is very precisely defined. And so that is why there is this provision that you wouldn't have sort of an expansion by the operator without customs being aware, because what it would mean is that the operator will be moving goods that are still subject to customs control into another area, another part of the building or another part of land or so, without customs being aware that those goods have been physically relocated, or that goods subject to customs control are now being stored in this new space.
But besides words,
and so that is why it's important for the commissioner to be aware of it.
But besides words, if I may, I mean, if a building, if the building, I mean, I understand what you're trying to say, right? But if the building is there and if it's contiguous in nature, the operator would have had their license with custom in terms of how they operate that control area. And if this expansion is contiguous with their existing operation, why would the operator need to be asking the commissioner, with all due respect, my friend commissioner, permission to expand, and it's contiguous?
Well, may I help my colleague? My own view is that we're not, you use the word the private sector, that's an overbroad term. This is a private person involved in a particular kind of activity.
With a license.
Well, that may be so, but what the risk that you have is a risk of leakage of, well, first of all, it's a privileged position. Even with the license, it's still a privileged position that he would have been granted if goods that are dutiable is being stored in the controlled area. No.
Remember, but it's not a privileged position. It's not privilege. He has a license with privilege.
The privilege to store goods that are dutiable. It's just that he doesn't have a right to store goods. That is something the commissioner would have to agree on, and ultimately the Minister of Finance. What we're talking about is a sensitive area of revenue and the many possibilities of leakages. And so if you are involved in the business of storing goods and receiving goods that are that are still under the control of customs, then you're not the regular business person. If you have it in property that are contiguous, then it seems to me at a minimum the Commissioner of Customs need to at least be advised so that they can monitor.
But but Member Hilton, this is not about advising, this is approval.
Yeah, but well, and I'm saying the approval I believe is necessary, because if you have disagreement, suppose a person have a disagreement taking the same position as you do, that this is his private property and therefore he has a right to do anything with it. And if that anything means putting in jeopardy and in the judgment of somebody, and this has to be the commissioner, putting in jeopardy the revenues of the country, then I believe he should be fettered at least in that way.
But Member Hilton, if the person is going to put the revenue of the country in jeopardy, the person should not have a license in the first place. All I'm saying is that while we craft a new bill, we can't seem to be overreaching either in what the bill is trying to do, because you want to ensure that commerce is also maintained and encouraged. So what I would suggest here, is that the language, instead of approval, is that the commissioner should be informed rather than approval.
Oh, let me come in here a second. Remember here we're dealing with
Sorry, would you repeat?
Sorry, go ahead, Ms. Edwards. I believe that we're dealing here with a bonded warehouse, are we not?
Yes, so warehouse is in general.
Yeah, so, you know, a bonded warehouse, first of all.
We're dealing with.
Go ahead, Ms. Edwards.
Right, I just want, yes, Minister. So we're dealing with the spaces, temporary storage facilities. Those spaces are currently known as public bonded warehouses. Right. So these are the spaces where goods come into the country. They have not been duty paid and they're being stored awaiting clearance.
Yeah, so remember, under those circumstances of goods coming in, they're not duty paid and there's a space that's approved for them. Any alteration with that space has to be approved by the commissioner, solely because if you did not have that, it introduces too much opportunity for the revenue to be negatively affected. So I understand what you're saying from a business point of view, but there's nowhere in the world that you're going to go where you can have a place designated to store items that are normally dutiable, but enter the country and the time of the duty is only going to be paid when it leaves that area, where you can change the boundaries of that area without approval from the authorities. If you could change a boundary without approval from authorities, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump for you to figure out ways for things to come through without detection. And that, you know, puts the revenue in a very vulnerable position.
Invidious position.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Chairman, let me further say to the member, remember that not only that he has to get approval from the commissioner to change the boundary, but he has to get, even though he owns a private property, he has to get the permit from the local government to do anything to that property.
No, Member Hilton, without a doubt. All I'm just trying to say, Chairman and Ms. Edwards, Commissioner, is that, I mean, the protection of the revenue is very important. We have to ensure that we protect the revenue. There's no doubt about that. But in crafting our bills, we also have to consider, you know, the overreaching nature of what we are doing, and we can adjust the language to ensure that we are finding a commonality in how we enact bill or we impose bill, and at the same time, how do we encourage commerce in the best possible way. I mean, that's all I'm trying to say, you know, how just to ensure that we're not overreaching in anything. But if this is the decision, and if this is the way that it is being, and I do understand what is being said, then I will yield. But I just want to ensure that what we're doing, because this custom bill is so long in coming, Chairman, that whatever we do now is going to be there for a long time to come. And therefore, how, and the language that we have must look at how do we engender the future. That's all I'm saying.
Because of the importance of this, and because it's been coming for such a long time, you know, you are within your right to query, and I totally encourage that. Having done so, you know, the confirmation is that I don't think there's any flexibility around the fact that changing the boundaries of this kind of storage area, which we know today as a public bonded warehouse, that you know could be accommodated. The improvement in the bill is to be found in other places, but in this area, you know, I think we have to be very clear that you have an area that's a public bonded warehouse as we know it today. If you're going to change the boundaries, you have to get approval before you change the boundaries.
Okay, Chairman.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. You can move on, Ms. Edwards.
Clause 31, access to customs controlled areas. So clause 1, the operator of a customs controlled area shall, immediately upon being requested to do so by the proper officer, grant the officer access to the customs controlled area. 2, without prejudice to any other action that may be taken under this act, where the operator of a customs control area fails to comply with subsection 1A, the proper officer may access the customs control area by any means that the officer considers reasonable in the circumstances. And B, the operator is liable for any expense incurred or damage sustained as a result of action taken by the officer under paragraph A.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Clause 32, entering or remaining in customs controlled area without permission. A person shall not, A, enter a customs controlled area other than in the presence of or with the permission of an officer or other than as authorized under any law. Or B, refuse to leave a customs controlled area or any part thereof when requested to do so by an officer, and the person who contravenes this section commits an offense.
Still can't hear you.
I pause, Minister, because I see an indication I am not being heard.
Hold on, no, go ahead. Just can you, I'm not sure where it's coming from. Is it in the chat?
So there is, Minister Commissioner here, there is a note that there is a stakeholder comment with regards to clause 31.
Yes.
Right.
The comment had been made by the airport operators who were concerned about the right to access, the right of customs to access the customs controlled spaces. The operators for the Kingston, one of the airport operators for the operator for NMIA had indicated that the power of the proper officer to access customs controlled areas by any means that the officer considers reasonable may give rise to rank abuse without due regard to security protocols and Jamaica's ICAO obligations. We had indicated when the matter was first raised in Joint Select, and we maintain the position that customs officers should have unfettered access to customs controlled areas in order to be able to properly execute their duties. This by no means sanctions breaches of other laws by customs officers, but if these areas are customs controlled areas, customs officers ought to be able to access these areas without restrictions.
Ms. Edwards, through you, Chairman, can I comment?
Please do.
All right, Ms. Edwards, I remember that discussion that the operator did, and I had a concern just like with the operators, and I had written at the time down and possibly adjustment, a middle ground that could have been arrived at the time. What I believe that they were saying, Ms. Edwards, is that while they're not averse to any custom officer visiting any area within the space, they have also their international aviation arrangement, and they have also rules to abide by there. And I believe what they wanted was that if custom officers who were off duty, not the ones who are on duty, the ones who are on duty can have unfettered access anywhere, but the ones who are off duty, if those persons who are off duty
I've lost the audio, member. I've heard up to the point of those persons who are off duty. I'm not hearing you, No.
I'm not hearing either.
Bro, I don't watch Haiku. I don't know Roblox. I haven't played Royal High in such a long time.
Can you go on, Mr. Edwards? We're lost. I think he'll come back.
All right. All right. Well, in terms of, well, I wanted to hear members' suggestion as to.
All right, you're back. Member Dunn is back.
Right. So, Miss Edwards, what I think they wanted, and I made a note at the time, was that for the persons who are off duty, if they want to access these restricted area, then maybe the operator should be notified by the commissioner that these off-duty persons wants to access the area. So I don't think they were making any reference to the custom officers who are on duty any at all. It's the ones who are off duty who wants to access the restricted area because of their own international obligations. Then maybe the compromise could be for those persons who are off duty, they would have to be, the commissioner would notify the operators that those persons want to have access to the restricted area. Thank you, Ms. Edwards.
But member, again, can I just say, I mean, I think I understand the members' general concern, but I think for these purposes, if we're gonna, I mean, there are many aspects of this Customs Act that I think changes the normal operating arrangements, even within domestic spaces, and that is for a good reason. That the customs anywhere is an area or a zone of very clear-cut authority. And that is for good reasons. Even with respect to the operator here, to require the commissioner in carrying out their duties, one would have to ask the question: under what circumstances would someone who, am I being heard?
Yes, I'm hearing member Ilton.
Yes, member Ilton.
Yeah, under what circumstances would off-duty customs officer be
doesn't mean you can trade something with me.
Going into control spaces without getting some? Either he's doing it, if he's doing it on a whim, then I believe, and he acts improperly, then I believe the commissioner, there are rules when it customs to deal with it. If he's doing it in accordance with some kind of operation, then it would have to be known and sanctioned by the commissioner or some senior, some person so charged. But again, I caution against having duality of jurisdiction and lack of clarity in the space, because if you do that, all you're really doing is confusion, and really to introduce something that is simply not acceptable in the space. If they are, when this matter was raised by the airports authority or by the Montego Bay authority, or both, the reasonable conclusion was that to the extent that some IK or other international obligations are affected adversely, that the customs would take that into consideration. I'm being advised that they did, and the customs is still clearly of the view that this is necessary. And I would be interested in hearing what that international IK or international obligation is put at risk by this. Because I believe it's customs is international, is best practice within customs. I don't know. I don't think that this is something new that is being introduced by this Customs Act. It will follow what the US does and another serious customs proceedings and control area put in place to take control of the area.
Yeah, I need to teleport too.
Thank you, Member Hilton.
Somebody has their mic open. I'm asking you, someone has their mic open. We can hear your conversation. You're on the phone. Please mute your mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Hilton. We did consider the various laws that we know operate within the airport space. Customs is certainly sensitive to the Jamaica's obligations in relation to security at airports and even at our marine ports as well. The purpose of this provision is not to disregard those rules. Operationally, when you have two different, laws operating in relation to a space, the various entities will need to cooperate, and there will be operational arrangements in place whereby we can agree on it. But I believe that to put in law somehow that customs should not have this unhindered access, that would not serve the purpose. And you are correct that when we looked at other jurisdictions, customs has this unfettered access when it comes to customs controlled areas. And as you accurately pointed out, if there are instances where there's improper action on the part of customs officers, there are adequate mechanisms within the agency in terms of disciplinary control that can be applied to those officers. But I believe when the issue had been raised in joint select, the commission also made the observation that customs is a very dynamic environment. The officers who are formally assigned to work within those spaces are not the only officers who may need to access those spaces. So for example, at the airport, we may have a cadre of staff who are routinely assigned to the airport, but our contraband enforcement team, that team is not routinely assigned to any space, but this is the team that usually executes enforcement operations on the part of customs. Sometimes when they're executing operations, their fellow customs officers don't know. How much more so would it be that the operators would not necessarily know? Because oftentimes these operations are intelligence driven, they're highly sensitive operations. So I believe that the difficulties, if any, will have to be worked out in terms of discussions between the airport operators and customs, and certainly in terms of our sensitivity, working with PICA very closely, and Civil Aviation Authority, who would ultimately have responsibility in relation to these areas. But we believe fundamentally customs should retain in law this unfettered access.
You are not poor.
All right.
Supported, position supported.
Yeah, supported here as well. Okay, let's move.
Clause 33, application of customs control. Application of customs control. 1, imported goods come under customs control from the moment the goods are imported until the goods are cleared for free circulation. I want to pause here because I believe in one of our earlier meetings, concerns were raised about the use of the word cleared here, certainly in terms of how clear and clearance is defined in the definition, in the interpretation section of the legislation. When we looked at it, we examined, the technical team examined all the instances in which the word cleared is used, and it is always used in relation to customs procedure. This is the only instance where the word cleared is used in relation to free circulation. But free circulation is not a customs procedure, it's a state in which goods become when it is those goods are no longer subject to customs control. And so to avoid any confusion, and we do think when we look at it, that it is not appropriate to use the word cleared here in terms of goods being cleared for free circulation. So perhaps we should have some language to indicate that the goods remain under customs control until they become goods in free circulation or some such language. I would, of course, want to receive some guidance from CPC, but just to indicate when the goods enter this state of free circulation, rather than saying that they're cleared for free circulation.
Chair, if I may, I'm wondering if you could just give some consideration to whether it would be appropriate to use the words authorized to be in free circulation instead.
May I ask a question?
Okay.
May I ask a question, Chairman?
Go ahead, please.
I mean, consistent with the points I made earlier, technical team, how is this dealt with in other jurisdictions? What's the best practice here?
For a moment.
Well, I'm not sure how to answer your question.
Is this a unique feature of Jamaican customs?
In terms of the concept of free circulation, Member Hilton?
Yeah, and the issue of the use of the term clearance, which could be quite confusing if a good is cleared, but not for free circulation and still under the control of customs. That leaves some confusion, and I'm one of the persons that are very, very concerned about this area and that we have some clarity around this area. So I'd like, I'm really trying to find out. There's a lot rides on this, quite a bit rides on this. And Minister Dunn, who has been quite correctly concerned about commerce and all of that. I think this is one area that
my name is Kuro,
I'd be very concerned that we have clarity
my name is Kuro,
around, so that it did not continue to confuse, and more importantly, to affect the whole matter of,
my name and
of goods and title to goods and how goods are then being able to transfer or to transact commerce.
I don't know his name, my OC.
Again,
the
somebody's
concept,
mic is open and you're on the telephone and we can hear your phone call. Thank you. You want to respond to Member Hilton, please?
Yes.
Wait, I remember I had the hand there.
Who is? Can anybody help? Who can see it? Who can see it? Can anybody see whose mic is open? I'm looking, but it's not clear to me. Other than myself and Miss Edwards, who are on the floor now. All right, go ahead, Ms. Edwards.
All right, so the concept of free circulation is not unique to Jamaica Customs. This idea is actually international best practice, is international terminology adopted from the revised Kyoto Convention. And that is simply referring to the idea that goods are no longer subject to customs control. Clearance, again, is an international concept adopted from the revised Kyoto Convention. It refers to the actions taken by an importer or a declarant by a person in order to cause goods to be brought under a customs procedure. Now, some customs procedures still result in the goods being subject to customs restrictions. And that is why it will be inaccurate to say you cleared goods for free circulation, you clear it for a customs procedure. But the fact that goods are under a customs procedure does not mean that customs restrictions no longer apply. Let me give an example. Temporary admission is a customs procedure. It's what we now know as temporary imports. It's permission granted to an importer to bring goods into the country on the understanding that the goods will remain in Jamaica for a fixed period of time and then exported. So the goods are cleared for the temporary admission procedure, but customs restrictions still apply because customs is still monitoring those goods to ensure that the terms of the temporary admission are complied with. That is, the goods are exported within the period of time. And in some instances, there may be security requirements or other conditions that the commissioner may impose. Home use is a customs procedure. And this is where person brings goods into the country and the goods are cleared for what we now refer to as domestic use with no restrictions applicable to those goods. So oftentimes goods that are in home use, can also say that those goods are in free circulation.
Sorry, Chairman, Don here.
Go ahead.
Can you just relate me? So there's been a lot of comments about the Chinese bringing in equipment for temporary use, but these equipments somehow remain in our country. Can you just help me with that in terms of how this new legislation will deal with that?
Well, I think I would need a bit more information
no, just generally that, you know, they're bringing these heavy equipments.
So, Senator Webber, maybe we could generalize the question rather than...
Sorry, Minister, sorry, I apologize. I should have really generalized. I just speaking of some specific comments that I've been hearing in the press, and I have no facts. So what I'm saying is really speculating what I've been reading. But so you have a contractor who is doing work in Jamaica, a non-Jamaican, and they bring in some equipment for a specific project, and they don't pay any duty or anything, and somehow the equipment remains here. In fact, so you use the word temporary. I'm just trying to figure out what exactly temporary means in terms of what we have been discussing.
Well, temporary, certainly with the current law, temporary means that those goods would remain generally for a set period of time. And the same is in the current act, though, well, the proposed law, this new bill is proposing an extension of the time for temporary imports, because we've recognized that in many instances when these goods are brought in, there's a need for them to be here for a longer period of time. I think the crux of the issue is...
you know, again, we had discussed at the last meeting, and I'm trying to think of how can we prevent any revenue leakage in that regard.
Well, for the goods to remain here indefinitely, they must be cleared for home use. So you could have a scenario where goods come in as a temporary import, but are subsequently cleared for the domestic market. So the question...
I mean, maybe I need to think about it a little more. It seems a little vague for me in terms of, and could in fact be a loophole in terms of equipment coming in, and the word temporary is used and it remains here. Temporary could mean 5 years. Can you put
up the phrase that has temporary so I can see what?
Yeah.
Let's put it up so because you might have read it quickly and maybe Senator Webby.
No, there is no reference to temporary import in what I have just read. But if you have to skip ahead to look at the provisions that treat with temporary imports.
So, Senator, can we wait until we get there?
Sure. Just sure, Minister. It's just that you used the word temporary, and
a while ago.
I know there's a lot of discussion in the local private sector.
Understood. We can talk about that.
And you know, I'm trying to think like you, Minister, about revenue leakage that we can't afford it.
Yes.
Can I say I'm quite prepared, Minister. I'm quite prepared that we hold and then come back to these concepts, but I think this is very critical from the point of view of certainty. If there be certainty, I understand the response from Ms. Edwards that says that it would have to be in relation to the specific purposes for which the goods are being cleared.
You're going back to the temporary, or you're on clause 33?
No, I'm on clause 33.
Okay.
And there are two concepts there that I think needs clarity, certainly for me, before all of this is over, because I think they are so critical.
But Chairman, through you, sir, but I think that's what Ms. Edwards was trying to do. She's trying to say that the word clear here might needs to be, if I'm correct, might need to be looked at a little differently. I think that's what Ms. Edwards is saying.
Right. So I'm saying, member Webby raised some questions, and I believe that the answer to that question would also touch and concern the twin concepts that are posing some challenges of clarity here. What I'm saying is, I'm prepared to hold on this, said words, until we go further in the act to look at other aspects of it that would touch and concern clear this whole concept of free circulation and customs control, clearance, free circulation, and how those are better improved for our understanding. So I won't insist on the clarity here, but I believe before it's over, we're going to have some clarity.
Noted, member, and I also note the recommendation from CPC, which in terms of the suggested language being authorized to be in free circulation, which I think is language that we could definitely consider, because it is indeed inappropriate to use the word cleared here. On our review, the technical team is satisfied that cleared is not the appropriate word to be used at clause 33.1.
Okay.
But perhaps we can
you're attempting to clarify, Ms. Edwards. That's what you're attempting to clarify. So what is the word that was recommended?
The CPC suggested authorized to be in free circulation.
Right.
Which we think conveys the idea.
Yeah, I think so too.
Well, thank you for that. I mean, I think that is progress for sure. So with that change, can we continue? Are we now at 34?
No, no, Minister. We're now at 33.2. Goods intended for export come under customs control from the moment the goods declaration for export is registered until the time the goods exit Jamaica in accordance with the customs laws. 3, the commissioner shall employ risk management principles in the application of customs controls. 4, a person commits an offense who, A, conceals goods under customs control in a manner calculated to deceive the commissioner, B, without lawful excuse, tampers or interferes with or destroys goods under customs control, C, without lawful excuse, 1, removes, whether in whole or in part, or 2, damages, tampers, or interferes with anything knowing or having reasonable cause to know that the thing is in use by or for the use of the customs agency. Or D, without lawful excuse, interferes with or takes possession of any goods, 1, prohibited from importation or exportation under any law and under customs control, or 2, liable to confiscation under any customs law.
Wait a minute. Let me just, again, I'm flagging this because under customs control, just like the customs control area, the term under customs control is a very broad, and I understand involves many and refers to many procedures. And the fix, it still is important. The term free circulation is important, and I believe I'm going to need a little bit more. I may have to look at the Kyoto Convention and the law, but we're now talking about the law here, and we need to be very clear that we don't leave it at the level of concepts, but that we detail what the law says. And my concern that I'm flagging, I don't necessarily need an answer right now, but I'm flagging a concern that the customs control can be it comprises many procedures, and at the end of which, for the purposes of commerce, there is a necessity and a need for there to be free circulation, and we have to determine precisely when that occurs and allows for business people to do business with a product that is imported into the island, and how title and all of that can be imparted. I think it's an area that we have to. I certainly need some clarity before this is all over. The customs control here is very broad. The definition given to it here is again very broad.
That's perhaps here. You remember Hilton. But these clauses here, once it's in the customs control area, it's the responsibility of the operator. That's what, and that seems very reasonable. But I hear you on understanding customs control area.
Customs control and free circulation.
And free circulation.
Yes.
Okay. I can continue, please, Ms. Edwards.
Noted, Minister. We've made note of the concern raised by Member Hilton. I think I would just before I move on, if you'll permit me, just to draw the committee's attention to clause 33.3, which emphasizes the fact that the Commissioner of Customs will be using risk management in determining the customs control measures that will be used. And this represents a major shift in terms of how customs, in terms of a major shift in the law, how customs operates. This has been, risk management has been underpinning customs operations for some time now. And it reflects the international best practice that is in the revised Kyoto Convention, as well as in the World Trade Organization Agreement on Trade Facilitation. And the idea here is that customs will always be looking, if a consignment or a particular goods is high risk, then we apply the controls accordingly. But if something is low risk, then we also ensure that we apply the controls accordingly. So we're focusing our energies where we need to put them and letting the things that don't require our attention as much allows those things to move through expeditiously.
As long, and I think that is satisfactory as long as principles of transparency are a part of that, because again, in the area of law, if it's hazy, then and if it's not certain, then you're really losing the definition of law, and it's back in the realm of some kind of discretion, and we have discretion in these areas. I understand the principle of the risk management principles, but I'm wondering if it is being proposed that at the level of regulation, we're going to seek to address this in any way.
So remember, this, as Ms. Edwards mentioned, this is 100% in keeping with international standards and practices, and is not just limited to customs. In areas of AML, money laundering, and other sort of risk management areas that require risk management, the standards and the expectations of Jamaica are that we employ a risk-based approach. And so areas or where there is high risk, the resources are applied and attention is paid. And where there's lower risk, the level of attention and resources may not necessarily be as much. But risk is going to be informed by statistics and surveys and analysis, and risk changes over time. but the principle is that you're going to apply things on a in relation to the risk that is associated with the particular either activity or etc.
No, I appreciate that, Minister. My single point is that where the risk management principles apply with respect to AML and all of that, that's one thing. Applied in the customs area, when you're talking about goods that are for all kind of purposes owned by individual, that's your property. And it is crossing the border to which customs have to apply. There are certain rules that have to be applied for clearance and for control and clearance and free circulation. I'm simply saying one of the improvements in this law, as I understand, in this act, as I understand, is an improvement in the law of the customs law and procedures that would allow for greater transparency and clarity. And I'm just simply saying, in this area, we have to do with certainly best practice. We're going to have to rely on it a great deal, but we have to make sure that this act is useful, because we still need commerce to go, as Mr. Dunn has been pointing out and protecting, which is customs procedure must inure to the benefit of commerce and other activities when all is said and done.
Indeed,
so,
indeed.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Edwards, you want to continue?
Yes. Clause 34, responsibility for goods in customs controlled area. Where goods unloaded from a means of transport are deposited in a customs controlled area, the operator of the customs control area is responsible for the goods during the period in which they remain at the customs controlled area. 35. Provision of facilities at customs controlled areas. Minister, if I may just note that this was on clause 34, was a clause in relation to which concerns had been raised by stakeholders as well. Again, the operators of the airports, but raised concerns in terms of their responsibility for goods within the customs controlled area. And we had indicated that...
addressed that when they appeared to us.
Yes, we had.
Yeah.
Clause 35, provision of facilities at customs controlled areas. So clause 1, the operator of a customs controlled area shall provide free of charge such facilities at that customs controlled area as may be specified by the commissioner by notice in writing issued to the operator for officers to exercise their functions under Part 13 in relation to goods and persons there. 2, it shall be the duty of the owner or occupier of a customs controlled area to provide the commissioner with such office space and other accommodations, weight, scales, and other equipment necessary for examining and taking account of goods at the customs control area, and to secure the goods in accordance with the directions of the commissioner.
Sorry, through your chairman, Ms. Edwards?
Yes.
Remember, this also came up at a point of discussion where the operators say that if they sublet the space to other persons, would they themselves now become liable, or it is the persons who are conducting the custom-related activity, they will become liable?
And the answer to that would be that it would be the person who's designated as the operator of the space. So if one sublets the space and that space is being used as a warehouse, then it's that particular warehouse operator who is now responsible, because that person is now the operator of the space, notwithstanding that the physical space may be owned by another person.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, continue, please.
Clause 36, production of goods deposited. Production of goods deposited at customs controlled area. 1, the proper officer may request that the operator of a customs control area produce to the officer any goods deposited at that customs control area which have not been delivered therefrom in accordance with the customs laws. 2, where the operator of a customs control area fails to produce any goods upon a request under subsection 1, the commissioner shall, by written notice to that operator, require that the goods be produced to the officer, or that an account to the satisfaction of the officer be given in respect of the goods, within such period of not less than 7 days, as shall be specified in the notice. An operator of a customs control area who fails to comply with a notice under subsection 2 commits an offense and shall, in addition to the applicable penalty for the failure, be liable for the duty and tax in respect of the goods. Clause 37, removal of goods intended for export.
Sorry, Ms. Edwards. Sorry, Ms. Edwards. Through you, Chair. Could you go back up, Ms. Edwards? For that section, would that be sufficient that the person become liable, or should be that they become liable, but they also have a risk of losing their license to be an operator?
That is indeed an excellent observation, member. Perhaps it's something that the technical team
right, because Ms. Edwards, what you want to do is you want to prevent anyone from even attempting to try to defraud the system, and they would know the outcome is not just a fine or whatever, but they run the risk of forfeiture of that license that they have to operate. Thank you.
What's your suggestion, Ms. Edwards?
I am just double checking the existing provisions in the legislation that deal with authorizations, because this will be a type of authorization. And I just want to double check how we would treat with, but in principle, there's no objection to that. I think I just need to see whether or not it's dealt with in another way. But in principle, there's no objection to that. And I think if not today, we can certainly consider it and let you know exactly how we would propose it being incorporated, whether by way of an amendment to this provision or dealing with under the authorization provisions. Because, for example, there are provisions that deal with how we would suspend an authorization, how we may revoke an authorization. So I just want to ensure that we don't have any duplication.
Right, understand.
So what I will do is that I'll take a note of it and then revert to the committee as to the recommendation as to how best to treat with it.
All right, please continue.
(37) Removal of goods intended for exportation. So clause 1, this section applies to goods removed from a customs controlled area. So clause 2, a person shall not, A, put or cause goods to be put on a foreign going vessel or foreign going aircraft, 1, otherwise than as permitted or directed by the proper officer, or 2, in contravention of the regulations. B, remove goods from a foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft, 1, otherwise than as permitted or directed by the proper officer, or 2, in contravention of the regulations. Or C, divert goods before they can be placed on board a foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft. E, where a person contravenes subsection 2 in respect of goods, A, the goods shall be confiscated in accordance with section 243, and B, the security given in respect of the goods shall be confiscated, notwithstanding that the time specified in relation to that security for putting the goods on board a vessel or aircraft or for warehousing the goods at their intended destination has not expired. 38. Permission to remove goods without payment of duty and tax. So clause 1. The commissioner may, in accordance with rules, permit the removal of goods from a customs control area before payment of the duty and tax on the goods is made. A, if the removal is for a purpose and for a period which appears to the commissioner to be expedient, and B, in such quantities and subject to such conditions, if any, as shall be specified. And the conditions may include the giving of security in accordance with part 12. 2, if goods are dealt with in any way contrary to any permission given or condition imposed under subsection 1, the commissioner may, in accordance with rules, demand immediate payment of the duty and tax payable in respect of the goods, or enforce any security given therefore. 39.
Sorry, Ms. Edwards, sorry to interrupt again. For that, you just mentioned there that they demand immediate payment. Okay, it's okay. I was on the word immediate payment satisfy what I wanted to ask. All right, thank you.
(39) 1, a person commits an offense who, A, takes goods out of a customs controlled area other than as permitted under the customs laws, B, embezzles, misappropriates, or unlawfully converts any goods duly warehoused or deposited in a customs controlled area, or unlawfully destroy any such goods, or C, aids or abets any act mentioned in paragraph A or B. So question for CBC, I'm just wondering, do we need an S on destroy? At 39(1)B.
Yes, that appears to be a typo. There should be an
yes, thank you. So clause 2, subject to subsection 3, where goods are taken out of a customs control area other than as permitted under the customs laws, the operator of the customs control area shall be liable for the duty and tax upon the goods and shall make payment thereof to the commissioner. 3, where the person convicted of an offense of contravening subsection 1 is an officer, A, the operator of the customs control area shall not be liable for the duty and tax unless the removal of the goods is attributable to the negligence or any willful act of the operator. And B, with the consent of the minister, the accountant general shall cause the declarant, or if there's no declarant, the import or export of the goods to be compensated for any damage sustained by reason of the commission of the offense.
Just to be clear, in B, and who, it doesn't say who compensates, well, with the consent of the minister, the accountant general. Okay. But in A, an officer is convicted for an offense of removing goods, and the operator is subject to liability for duty and taxes for negligence or in a willful act of the operator. Willful act, I can appreciate, but negligence for a criminal act of the officer, I think we need to look at that. If someone acts criminally, no, the negligence, I mean, if the operator is willful in their action, then they almost a co-conspirator or contributor or contributes to the crime. But negligence, I don't think it's part of our common law that people are personally liable for criminal liable civilly for the criminal conduct of another. I think we need to look at that very carefully. The willful act, I can appreciate and I think appropriate, but negligence described how? For the willful act of another, especially an officer. No, I think we need to be very careful here. I don't like this.
No, don't like which?
We're in 3, subsection 3.
Mm.
All right? We're saying that someone is charged, an officer, no less, is charged for removing goods from custom control area and is found guilty of the offense. But the operator is subject to liability for negligence relating to what? To the criminal that vitiate, someone's criminal action is being excused and the operator is held for the person's criminal.
No, I think, but it says any willful act, suppose.
No, it says negligence or, and I'm saying with respect to the willful act, I can appreciate that and support that. The negligence, it is not, and I'm saying in our law, under our criminal statute, I don't think persons can be held responsible for the criminal act of someone else.
Okay, here's what I think it's trying to achieve, and let's discuss it a little more. It's an awesome responsibility for the state of a country to give you as a company the license to operate, let's use an airport or some other facility that allows goods to come in and to go out, and for you to have a customs control area. Having a customs control area is a serious responsibility, and you're required to have proper security, etc., etc. And in the event that somebody contravenes subsection 1, which has to do with removing things from a custom control area, and that person happens to be an officer, what this is saying, if the operator was negligible, for example, leaving the door open or not having, leaving the keys out, what it's saying that, okay, yes, the officer is going to pay his price because he has been convicted, but you still have to deal with the duty and the taxes because you have a responsibility to have proper procedures and other proper procedures in place that are commensurate with the responsibility of being an operator.
Well, Minister, this is not, I hear you. And
if we didn't have that.
Yes, if we didn't have, I mean, what we're talking about here, Minister, I hear my point is a narrow point of law, which is it's not customary and it's not the done thing under our law for someone to be held criminal, to be liable for someone's criminal conduct.
No, but that's not what, you're not being liable for criminal conduct.
Right.
You're saying that if something is stolen, right? If something is stolen, you still have the duty to pay on it. I mean, you take insurance out for those things, right? So
yeah,
it's like saying let's use a different analogy altogether, completely different analogy. I operate a store in Christiana. I have goods in my store that I've bought from a distributor. If those goods are stolen and somebody is brought to court and convicted of it, or whatever, and that person is bankrupt and I can't pay me back, I'm still liable to pay the distributor to supply for those goods. So this is saying that, look, you are liable for the duty for those goods. The only way you can get away out from that liability is if, one, an officer was convicted for taking those goods away, and two, you discharge your responsibility for protecting the area. In other words, being forgiven the liability for the goods because they've been stolen is a big deal. And normally, that doesn't happen in commerce, and that's why people have insurance, right? That doesn't happen in commerce. In commerce, I sell you something and you have it in a warehouse and the warehouse burned down. You still owe me that money, which is why you have insurance. So here, but this is at a level that is beyond normal commercial activity. This is a very highly specialized operation and a license that is critically important, because if it's not discharged properly, the very security, talk about revenue, but the very security of the country could be compromised. So if stuff that is supposed to be under your possession, right? You have control of the customs control area, and something goes missing under your jurisdiction. Normally, it would say you're liable for it anyway. This is giving you the out. This is giving you the out of saying you are not liable for it if you did what you were supposed to do, one, and two, the person who took it away was an officer. I don't think excuse them. It's not commercial to excuse them, or else that introduces a whole set of perverse incentives. In the same way that if you were to excuse a commercial purchaser from liability if they purchase your item and something burned down, that it would introduce perverse incentives, which is why that doesn't excuse you from liability. And that's why you take out insurance.
No, but what I'm saying, what you've introduced in this, though, is that someone else is criminally liable.
No, this is not, they're not criminal liable, member Hilton.
No, I'm not saying that the operator is criminally liable. I understand it. I'm saying where someone else acted criminally.
Yes, they've stolen your goods. They've stolen goods in your possession.
Right. So I'm saying if goods go missing and you're proven to be negligent, right? That's one thing. If goods go missing and someone else stole it and is found guilty of it, then well,
if you were negligent, what we're saying here is that if you were negligent in your responsibility, and remember, you'd have to prove that, right? So that proving that already is a big deal. But if it can be proven that you're negligent in your responsibility, then you are liable to pay the duty. You're not liable for the criminal act, but you're liable on the duty and the stuff that's gone missing. If you don't have that, member Hilton, we're gonna have a problem. What we're saying is that this is reinforcing the need for the operator to make sure that the procedures and the security, if I may use those terms, are at the highest levels possible.
Yeah, Minister, so I agree with the minister. We must have a system of accountability.
Yeah, and that's basically what it is. It is accountability.
So I agree with the minister, Member Hilton.
No, I'm not trying to evade accountability. And Don, I can tell you, when this passes, one advice I have for you, given your operation, you're going to immediately have to just ramp up your own legal.
No, we're not going to speak in specifics in the committee. Let's speak generally about.
Yeah. All right, but I'm telling you, operators generally have to now beef up the expense. They're now going to have to defend against a plethora of lawsuits because anybody or anything goes missing, whether with somebody stealing.
No, remember, Hilton, you're extending this analogy. No. This is the operator of a customs control area. That's not an import.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, right. That's what I'm talking about.
The operator
operator reference is the operator of a custom control area.
Yes.
And I'm saying that person has now to have a battery of lawyers ready because everything is going to come as a law. He's going to be included in every claim, even though someone else has been found criminally.
No. Remember, Hilda. No, we're saying here that if you're given the privilege of because what could happen if you don't have this? If you don't have this member, you leave the door. I didn't want to get into specifics, right? In terms of the downs, but you leave the door open for collusion, where.
Well, that's where the willful thing comes in. That's where I said yes.
No, it can just be negligent. You can just leave the door open. Right? I left the door open. That's not willful. Oh my God, I made a mistake. We left the door open.
Anyway, I think my concern remains, but I think we can move on. Basically, what you're holding somebody strictly liable for your duties and charge. That's what you're really doing.
Well, I hear you saying that law firms will get more business. I'm not speaking about any particular lawyer. That can't be a bad thing for law firms. But anyway, I say that facetiously.
It's at the expense of the commercial operator. Anyway.
I just want to mention though that the idea that the operators are responsible if things go missing, that is the current law. And as far as I'm aware, it may happen from time to time, but the operators have their security measures in place. I don't think you're going to see any significant increases in claims from persons because I think the operators are doing their best to ensure that things are not stolen from their spaces.
You must take your things going on. Ms. Edwards, the member has agreed to move on. Don't push it.
So part B, entry and exit of means of transport, goods and persons. 40, entry and exit of vessels and aircraft. 1, except as otherwise provided pursuant to section 46, a master of a foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft who permits the vessel or aircraft, as the case may be, A, upon entering Jamaica or while in Jamaica, to call or land at any place other than a customs-controlled port or customs-controlled airport, or B, to depart Jamaica from a place other than a customs-controlled port or customs-controlled airport, commits an offense. 2, vessels or aircraft that enter, pass through, and exit the territorial waters or airspace of Jamaica without calling or landing at a place in Jamaica, and all goods and persons on board such vessels or aircraft are subject to customs control until they exit the territorial waters, contiguous zone, or airspace, as the case may be, of Jamaica. 3, for the purposes of this act, as regards vessels and aircraft that enter, pass through, and exit the territorial waters, contiguous zone, or airspace of Jamaica as described in subsection 2A, the persons on board such vessels or aircraft shall not be subject to the customs processing requirements of this act for entry and exit, and B, such vessels or aircraft and goods on board such vessels or aircraft shall not be subject to the customs processing requirements of this act for entry and exit. 4, subsection 3 does not apply to goods or persons that do not remain on board or that are taken on board a vessel or aircraft during its passage through the territorial waters or airspace of Jamaica. 5. It shall be a defense to a charge of contravening subsection 1 for the carrier to show that A, the entry into or exit from Jamaica was due to a forced call or landing, and B, the carrier, as soon as reasonably practicable, 1, notify the commissioner using such means as are prescribed under subsection 6 of the place of entry or exit, as the case may be, and 2, took all reasonable precautions to prevent a contravention of the customs laws, and in particular, as regards the loading or offloading of persons or goods at the place of entry or exit. 6. The commissioner shall prescribe the procedure to be followed, including the means of notification referred to in subsection 5, in the event of a forced call or landing by vessels or aircraft for the securing of persons, goods, and means of transport so as to prevent a contravention of the customs laws. 7. In this section and section 43, forced call or landing means any entry into or exit from Jamaica by a vessel or aircraft due to circumstances beyond the control of the carrier, such as adverse, we need to scroll up, such as adverse weather conditions or any other condition which poses an imminent threat to safety. 41, entry and exit of goods. Subclause 1, imported goods or goods destined for export shall not be offloaded from or loaded onto any foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft, except at a customs-controlled port, customs-controlled airport, or other area designated under this act as a place for loading or unloading foreign-going vessels or foreign-going aircraft. Two, the commissioner may, subject to any other authority provided for by law, give reasonable directions as to the particular part of any customs controlled port or other customs controlled area where foreign-going vessels or foreign-going aircraft shall moor or discharge their cargo. 3, except as permitted by the regulations or with the written permission of the commissioner, a person shall not unload, remove, or transfer goods from any means of transport arriving from a place outside Jamaica unless authorization therefore is given by the proper officer. B, goods unloaded at any customs controlled port from a foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft into any vessel to be landed shall not be loaded into any other vessel before being landed, but shall be taken to an approved place of unloading or a sufferance wharf approved by the commissioner for that purpose within the same port. C, except as provided in paragraph A, a person shall unload goods from a foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft arriving from a place outside of Jamaica only at a place of unloading or sufferance wharf approved by the commissioner for that purpose. And immediately upon being landed, the goods shall be 1, retained at the place of unloading or sufferance wharf, or 2, conveyed into a customs controlled area or to a government warehouse if so required by the commissioner. D, a person shall not remove goods from any part of a customs controlled area or a government warehouse unless authority for their removal has been given by the proper officer. E, a declarant in respect of goods released for a warehousing procedure shall remove the goods in such manner and within such time as the proper officer shall direct, subject to the declarant giving security in accordance with Part 12. 4. The activity permitted by subsection 1 shall be in respect only of goods that have been duly reported in accordance with the requirements of this part. And goods that have not been so reported shall not be unloaded from or loaded onto a foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft arriving from a place outside of Jamaica, except for goods for the consumption or use of the crew or passengers under such conditions as may be provided for in rules, or as may be directed by the commissioner in a particular case. 5. A person who unloads, removes, or transfers goods from a foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft, other than in accordance with this section, commits an offense. 42. Expenses of safeguarding goods.
Sorry, Ms. Edwards. Through you, Chair. Ms. Edwards, how does this, the section you just read and the preceding one, right? How do they operate in time of disaster where airdrops might be recommended as a part of the disaster relief? Sorry, Ms. Edwards, did you hear me?
Just repeat, I didn't hear all of your question. You were asking, how does this operate in cases of drops for disaster relief?
Where airdrops are suggested as an appropriate way of reaching individuals, rather than through designated sufferance wharfs or the designated area.
These are airdrops coming from outside of Jamaica?
Correct. So that is in the case of the disaster, real natural disaster. Take for instance, where our airport is decimated and persons, so there's no, I think the word is sufferance wharf, designated. And then airdrops are recommended as a part of alleviating the sufferings. How maybe it's hypothetical enough, but how is there a consideration for that?
Under disaster conditions, member Dunn, you know, there would be other acts that come into to play, and there can be orders that exempt items from duty, right?
Right, Chairman. So therefore, I mean that goes to maybe the art of what I'm saying. So in other words, would the language be done in such a way that considers, you know, these various different acts that would be applicable?
Well, why not necessarily understand exactly what you're alluding to? How I would respond is to say that you're talking about a very specific possibility, which will happen 1 out of every, 2,000 days, or 1 out of every. And so you don't build a law for that 1 day out of 5,000. What you do is there are certain powers that are vested in the minister that would, under disaster conditions, would allow items to enter duty-free. So, right? So, I mean, we had an example of that with respect to masks and other stuff when COVID first began. I mean, they weren't dropped from the sky, like in the hypothetical case that you're talking about, but we had specific, and those were publicly, where, for example, the alcohol and sanitizers, we just didn't have enough in the country at the time. And for a very specific period, they came in without duty. So that we don't have to, there are provisions that allow for responses on the disaster that we would need clauses 40, 41, or 42 to address.
But Chairman, if I may, remember Hilton and Chairman, what you said is quite true, Chairman, but that is in the case where the designated areas are still operable. But take, for instance, we're destroyed by, God forbid, by a category 7 hurricane.
God forbid.
A category 7 hurricane that makes landing almost impossible at Norman Manley or Sangsa International Airport. I mean, or seaport would have been out of the question anyway. So airdrop at that stage would have been the only way to reach the inhabitants of the country. So while I agree with it, it might be 1 in a million year, I mean, it's something that you have placed this country in a position in terms of our disaster risk management and how you have ordered our financial affairs to deal with these possibilities. We can't just say it may be 1 in a 2,000 years because it's still a real possibility. That's
no, I didn't say 2,000 years, 2,000 days, which is about
2,000 days.
About 8 years, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, so what we're saying here is that what we'd have to have is a suspension of certain rules. And I think, I don't have it on my fingertips now, but I believe that the legislative architecture provides, and the constitutional architecture provides space for response on the scenario that you're painting, right? The Disaster Risk Management Act allows for, orders to be given. If something, you're worried that you're saying if nothing can come in through a port and can be airdropped, whether customs would try and gather below the airplane and capture the goods and charge them duty. Is that what you're worried about?
Really no, Chairman.
Huh?
No, I actually, remember, Don, I was actually going to agree with you in the sense that I think, the chairman's point that these are extraordinary and emergency situations is correct. But I think equally correct is that this is entirely, especially in this period of climate change, this is entirely foreseeable. And I think both the customs and the aviation and the military, and the RMA, I think they need to come together and just look at these circumstances, because these are special circumstances, and make some general provision. But I do think that it is entirely foreseeable in terms of something emergency happening, particularly in a climate change condition, and make some provision as to what happens in those circumstances from the point of view of customs.
Noted. I believe that clause 30, subsection 1E may provide a response to it, except for the caveat that CPC pointed out that because of the modality for this in terms of a notice published by Gazette, whether it was our intention to have the consultation requirements apply here, right? And that was duly noted, but clause 13, subclause 1E provides that the commissioner can designate to meet the exigencies of any case a place of unloading. So this would allow you to have designations for other places, because I think you couldn't, even in a disaster scenario, I don't know that we could have a scenario where persons are just flying in aircraft and dropping things over Jamaica without any sort of authorization. But this power, to my mind, would allow the commissioner to say, you can drop it at these places that weren't otherwise approved places of loading, but for these purposes would now become approved places of unloading.
And I think you're correct. There's a provision there that will empower the commissioner. I do believe, though, the point the member is making is that in those circumstances, there are a number of other laws that come into play. And so what is needed is a sort of coordination to make sure that the laws fit and work together in a very practical and beneficial.
One thing that we could do in response to that, remember, done, is to just do a scenario analysis and to see how the legislation, you know, that's beyond the scope of this committee, though.
Right. Correct, Chairman.
But we could still seek to answer the question, the hypothetical.
I'm a green member.
It's 5:05. I mean, the committee is in a very feisty mood today, considering that we have only done no more than 42 is not done yet, so I can't count it. So we've done no more than 11 clauses. Having started with no quorum, this is an unexpected place to end up. But it's been a very vibrant and good discussion. I wanted to get through part B before we left, but we have about, it's 42 to 47, but it covers a number of pages. May not be realistic to do it in any short time. If, you know, I wouldn't want to detain people beyond 5:30. If you think we could get through 42 to 47 by then, we'll give it a go.
We should give it a go.
So, okay, let's give it a go. The aim is to finish at B.
Let's give it a go, Chairman.
And to break at 5:30.
Noted, Minister. So
right, that's right. Let's go for it. Or before 5:30, fine. Yeah, 42.
Yes. Expenses of safeguarding goods. 1. Until the expenses chargeable under subsection 2 are recovered from the carrier or from the owner of the goods, the proper officer may detain a vessel or aircraft, A, where any goods intended to be imported, 1, remain on board the vessel or aircraft longer than such period after the arrival of the vessel or aircraft in Jamaica, as is prescribed by rules, or such longer period as the Commissioner may allow. And 2, measures are taken to secure the goods on the vessel or aircraft. B, where in any circumstances goods referred to in paragraph A are removed to a government warehouse, or C, where owing to any vessel or aircraft, 1, becoming derelict, or being driven or brought into Jamaica on the legal process or stress of weather, it becomes necessary to station an officer on board or otherwise to secure the goods for the proper enforcement of the customs laws. 2, for the purposes of subsection 1A, the expenses chargeable shall be at such rate as is prescribed by rules. B, the expenses chargeable under paragraph A1 shall be such expenses as are incurred after the period applicable under subsection 1A has elapsed. And 2, include the cost of removing the goods to a government warehouse and safeguarding the vessel or aircraft. 43. Entry and exit of persons. No person shall embark or disembark from a foreign-going vessel or foreign-going aircraft, A, except at a customs-controlled port or customs-controlled airport, and B, the person shall not leave the customs-controlled port or customs-controlled airport until the person is processed by the proper officer, or by such means and in such manner as may otherwise be prescribed, and a person who contravenes this subsection commits an offense. 2, a carrier of a vessel or aircraft referred to in subsection 1, who permits a person to embark or disembark in contravention of subsection 1 commits an offense. 3, nothing in subsection 1 or 2 shall be construed as rendering a person liable to criminal proceedings in respect of any entry into or exit from Jamaica at a place that is not a customs-controlled port or customs-controlled airport due to circumstances outside of that person's control, such as a forced call or landing as defined by section 40, subsection 7. 4, a person arriving in or departing from Jamaica shall make to the Commissioner a goods declaration, A, in such form and containing such information as may be prescribed in the regulations, and B, in such a manner as may be prescribed by the Commissioner under subsection 6. 5. A declarant under subsection 4 shall furnish the Commissioner, when requested to do so, with full particulars concerning declared items, including any available invoices and any other documents relating to those items. 6. The Commissioner may make rules for the purpose of facilitating the customs processing of persons arriving in and departing from Jamaica, and, without prejudice to the generality of the foregoing, such rules shall prescribe the customs processing systems which apply for different categories of persons and goods. 7. The items in the accompanied or unaccompanied baggage of a person arriving in Jamaica shall be cleared for the customs procedure appropriate in the particular case. 44. Entry or exit in contravention of requirements. 1. The Commissioner may, in the case of a contravention of section 40, 41, or 43, assess duty and tax on any goods concerned in the contravention as though the goods were declared and released for home use. 2. This section applies without prejudice to any criminal or civil proceedings that may be instituted, penalty that may be imposed, or any other steps that may be taken by the Commissioner in respect of the contravention concerned. 45. Departing without permission. 1. A carrier of a vessel or aircraft commits an offense if the carrier causes or permits the vessel or aircraft to depart Jamaica without A, receiving permission to depart from the proper officer, and satisfying such conditions as may be prescribed by rules. 2. The permission granted under subsection 1 may, on the application of the carrier, subject to such conditions as may be prescribed by rules, be a general permission to depart on 2 or more occasions. 3. The procedure applicable under Part 10 to the suspension and revocation of authorizations shall apply to the grant of a general permission under this section. 46. Exemptions and exclusions. The Minister may make regulations providing for the entry, exit, reporting, and customs processing requirements in respect of any category of vessels or aircraft, including military vessels or military aircraft, small vessels, and vessels or aircraft for private use.
Okay, let's stop the clause by clause there. That's a natural logical break, and we'll pick up at subpart C at our next meeting.
Minister, one quick question. May I ask that 45.1, the expression a carrier of a vessel or an aircraft, could someone look into that? If a carrier which is a vessel or an aircraft, I understand, but a carrier of a vessel or an aircraft, I would like that to be looked into, and next time someone give a response to that. The expression seems
that's a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, good question.
Okay, just flagging that. We could start with some clarity around that.
That's a good question.
Duly noted. Duly noted. Perhaps the answer is to some extent reflected in the definition of carrier.
Right, but off the carrier off, I don't get. A carrier which is a vessel or aircraft, I understand. But a carrier off, I think we need to look at that expression.
Look at the definition of carrier. You want to read the definition of carrier?
Yes. Carrier is defined, carrier in relation to a means of transport means the owner or the person in charge of or responsible for the operation of the means of transport.
Right. Okay.
And so that's why I believe it's phrased that way, because it's not the vessel, it's the person responsible.
Owner of the vessel.
yes, to whom the liability is being
Okay.
liability attached.
Good.
But thank you for raising it, Member Hilton. That's a good, necessary question to make sure that. All right, so we finished the clause by clause, ending at subpart B. And at this point, I ask if there's any other business. And if not, we'll move to set the date of the next meeting. If there's no other business, Ms. Bailey, can you indicate the next availability? I believe it's June, is it 14th or 17th?
It's June 16, Chairman.
June 16th, the next few Thursdays.
It's actually a Wednesday.
A Wednesday, okay. But there's no space between now and then?
No, Chairman.
All right, so we're proposing the next meeting for June 16th on a Wednesday, and I've taken the liberty to reserve the Thursdays in July. I know maybe not everyone, people have holiday schedules maybe, so maybe not every, Parliament doesn't break. So we're reserving the Thursdays in July to see if we can make some progress. We are at clause 47. We have over 200 clauses to go through, and we're going to need some concentrated sessions. So we're going to reserve the Thursdays in July as the spaces have been taken pretty quickly. The next one we have available after today is the 16th of June, and thereafter we don't have another session available until July. So with your agreement, the next meeting will be set for Wednesday, July 16th at 2 o'clock online. And hopefully we don't, and thereafter, obviously we'll set the date of the next meeting at the next the following meeting, or the meeting that follows Wednesday the 16th, at the meeting of Wednesday the 16th. But I want to just give a heads up that we're reserving the Thursdays in July to see how far we can get before the summer recess. If it's possible to get through the main legislation by then, it would be great. Giving us an opportunity for this to go back to the House, certainly within the fiscal year. Can we have, therefore, a motion? We have agreement on Wednesday the 16th. Member Hilton?
Good with me.
Thank you. And can we have a motion for adjournment?
I so move for the adjournment.
Thank you, Member John. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let me just thank the members for the vibrant discussion this afternoon, and the technical team from Customs and from CPC, from AG's Chambers, those on the call from the Ministry of Finance for their attendance as well. I think we made some very good progress, and I look forward to our next meeting on Wednesday, the 16th of June at 2 o'clock. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Minister. Bye.
People at the center of Caribbean societies, with built-in resilience for water, food, and internet, opportunities to own, invest, and be masters of our fate, innovations to tackle inequality and poverty, improve public services, better lifestyles, and fewer of us suffering from non-communicable diseases. Join the conversation on putting people at the center of development in the Caribbean with Professor Avinash Prasad, Chairman of the CARICOM Commission on the Economy, fellow Commissioner Dr. Damian King, and Dr. Jani Remy, Deputy Director of the Shudaf Ramphal Center for International Trade Law, Policy and Services, on Thursday, June 3rd at 8 p.m. in Barbados, 7 p.m. in Jamaica. I'm your host, David Ellis, inviting you to tune into this station or online to hear how we can build a better Caribbean for everyone.
Watch Inside Sports, Saturdays at 5 p.m. on PBCJ, the People's Station.
The following parenting tip is brought to you by the National Family Planning Board. I am a strong woman because a strong